The stars had always looked peaceful to Admiral Jack Morrison as he stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, but today they seemed different somehow. The ship moved through space like a silver needle threading through black cloth, carrying humanity's hopes and dreams into the vast unknown. 3 years had passed since humans first learned how to travel faster than light, and this was their furthest journey yet into the depths of space. Captain Lisa Hayes walked up beside him, her boots clicking softly on the metal floor. She had been his second in command for 2 years now, and he trusted her judgment more than anyone else in the fleet. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her green eyes showed the same mix of excitement and worry that Morrison felt in his own chest. "Sir, we're getting something strange on our long-range sensors," she said quietly. "It's not like anything we've seen before." Morrison turned to look at the main screen where Lieutenant Commander Amy Parker was working at her station. Amy was their best tactical officer, a young woman who could read enemy movements like others read books. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she tried to make sense of what they were seeing. "What kind of strange?" Morrison asked. 17. "Ships, sir. Big ones. They're just sitting there at the edge of our solar system, like they're waiting for something," Amy replied without looking up from her screen. The bridge fell quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Morrison felt his heart beating faster as he realized what this meant. For 3 years, humans had been alone in space, finding empty planets and dead systems. Now, finally, they had found other life. The question was whether this life would be friendly or hostile. "Communications Officer Wright, any messages from them?" Morrison called out. Danny Wright was a thin man with nervous hands who had joined the crew just 6 months ago. He was good at his job, but Morrison could see the stress in his face as he worked at his station. "Nothing yet, sir. They're just ... silent." Morrison made a decision that would change everything. "Send them a standard first contact message. Tell them we come in peace and want to talk." The next few minutes felt like hours as they waited for a response. Morrison walked back and forth across the bridge, his hands behind his back, thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. Lisa stood nearby, ready to give orders if needed. The crew worked quietly at their stations, all of them knowing that this moment would be remembered forever. Then the screen flickered to life. The creature that appeared before them was unlike anything humans had ever imagined. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, with scaly green skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. Its eyes were made of what looked like blue crystal, and they stared at the humans with cold intelligence. When it spoke, its voice was deep and harsh, like rocks grinding together. "Primitive species designation. Human," it said, each word carefully chosen. "I am Speaker Kethmore of the Galactic Council. You will listen and obey." Morrison stepped forward, trying to appear calm even though his heart was racing. "This is Admiral Morrison of the Terran Defense Force. We're honored to meet you and hope we can be friends." The alien's laugh was like breaking glass. "Friends? You misunderstand your situation completely. The Galactic Council has ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. Every species that enters space must submit to our authority. You are no different." "Submit?" Lisa asked, her voice sharp with anger. "What do you mean, submit?" "I mean exactly what I said," Kethmore replied, his crystal eyes focusing on her. "Your species will surrender all military assets within 72 standard hours. Your government will be dissolved. Your population will be relocated to designated labor colonies where you will work for the benefit of the Council. This is not a request. This is a command." The bridge was completely silent now. Morrison felt the blood drain from his face as he understood what the alien was saying. They weren't being invited to join some galactic community. They were being enslaved. "And, if we refuse?" Morrison asked quietly. "Then your species will be eliminated," Kethmore said without emotion. "We have done this to 47 species in the past millennium. Some chose to submit and now serve us faithfully. Others chose to resist and no longer exist. The choice is yours." Amy's hands were shaking as she checked her instruments. "So their ships are moving into attack positions. They're armed with weapons I've never seen before. Morrison looked at his crew, these brave men and women who had volunteered to explore the unknown. Danny Wright was pale as paper, his hands gripping his console so tightly his knuckles were white. Amy was trying to stay calm, but he could see the fear in her eyes. Lisa stood straight and tall, her jaw set with determination. "You have 72 hours," Kethmer continued. "We will remain here and monitor your communications. Any attempt to warn your other colonies will result in immediate destruction. Any attempt to flee will result in immediate destruction. Submit or face the consequences." The screen went dark, leaving the bridge in silence. Morrison turned to his crew. "Danny, send a coded message to Earth Command. Tell them we have a code red situation. Amy, I want full scans of those ships. Find out everything you can about their weapons and defenses. Lisa, call a meeting of all department heads in 1 hour." As his crew rushed to carry out his orders, Morrison stared out at the stars that no longer seemed peaceful. Somewhere out there, 17 alien warships waited to destroy everything humans had built. In 72 hours, his species would either kneel before alien masters or face extinction, but as he looked at his crew working with desperate efficiency, he saw something that the Council had clearly underestimated. These people had the same spirit that had driven humans to climb mountains, cross oceans, and reach for the stars. They would not go quietly into slavery. The alien had said that 47 species had faced this choice. Morrison wondered how many of them had really tried to fight back, how many had given up too easily, how many had simply accepted their fate. "Not us," he whispered to himself. "Not humanity." The countdown had begun, and Morrison knew that the next 72 hours would determine whether humans remained free or became slaves. The Council wanted their submission, but they were about to learn that some species would rather die fighting than live in chains. The war for humanity's freedom was about to begin. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had always been curious about the old files hidden deep in the government archives, but she never expected to find something that would change the fate of humanity. The basement levels of the Terran Defense Initiative were filled with boxes of forgotten projects, failed experiments, and classified documents that no one had looked at for decades. She was supposed to be studying alien artifacts, preparing humanity for the day they would meet other species in space. Now that day had come, and it was nothing like anyone had hoped. The news about the Council's ultimatum had spread quickly through the facility, and everyone was working desperately to find some way to help their species survive. Dr. Carl Thompson, her research partner for the past 5 years, was helping her search through the old files. He was a quiet man with gray hair and tired eyes, but his mind was sharp and he never gave up on a problem. They had been working together for 16 hours straight, looking for anything that might help them understand the alien technology. "Elena, look at this," Carl said, holding up a thick file marked with red warning labels. "Project Dreadnought, classified level 10. I've never seen a classification that high before." Elena took the file and opened it carefully. The first page made her hands start shaking. The project had been started by Dr. Kenneth Blake 40 years ago, and it was supposed to create a weapon system unlike anything humanity had ever built. But what made her heart race was the technical drawings on the second page. "Carl, this is impossible," she whispered. "These designs show alien technology. Look at these power systems, these weapon configurations. Blake was using alien tech in his designs, but we hadn't even met aliens yet." Carl leaned over her shoulder to look at the drawings. Maybe he found some old ruins or crashed ships. There have always been rumors about strange discoveries that the government kept secret. Elena kept reading, her excitement growing with each page. Blake had somehow gotten his hands on advanced alien technology and had been trying to build a ship that could use it. The weapon systems were beyond anything humans had ever created, capable of destroying entire planets. But the most interesting part was the artificial intelligence system. "He wasn't just building a computer," she said to Carl. "He was trying to capture and use an alien consciousness. Look at these notes about neural pattern extraction and personality imprisonment." They spent the next hour reading through Blake's research notes, and the picture that emerged was both incredible and terrifying. Blake had somehow captured the mind of an alien war criminal, someone who knew all the secrets of the species that was now threatening humanity. The alien had been imprisoned in a digital form, forced to serve as the ship's intelligence system. But why was the project cancelled? Carl asked. If Blake had all this technology, why didn't they build the ship? Elena found the answer in the final report. Blake had died suddenly in a laboratory accident, and all his work had been classified and locked away. The other scientists couldn't understand his notes well enough to continue the project, and the government had decided it was too dangerous to pursue. We need to call General Stone, Elena said. She needs to see this right away. General Patricia Stone had been running the Terran Defense Initiative for 10 years, and she was known for making tough decisions under pressure. She was a small woman with steel gray hair and sharp blue eyes that seemed to see right through people. When she arrived at the archive facility, she brought several technical experts with her. Dr. Rodriguez, I hope you have something that can help us, the general said as she looked at the files. The council ships are holding position at the edge of our solar system. We have less than 60 hours to find a solution. Elena spread out the technical drawings on the table. General, Dr. Blake was working on something called the Dreadnought project. He had access to alien technology and was building a ship that could fight them using their own weapons against them. General Stone studied the drawings carefully, her expression growing more serious with each page. These power levels are off the charts? This ship would be more powerful than our entire fleet combined. But how did Blake get alien technology? 40 years ago? We don't know, Carl admitted. But the important thing is that he did, and he left us the blueprints to build it. Elena pointed to the most important part of the design. The ship's AI system isn't just a computer. Blake somehow captured the consciousness of an alien war criminal, someone who fought against the Council. This alien knows their weaknesses, their tactics, their fears. The general's eyes widened as she understood the implications. You're telling me we have a weapon that can match their technology and an enemy of theirs who knows how to use it? That's exactly what I'm saying, Elena replied. But there's a problem. The construction requirements are massive. We'd need to convert our entire industrial capacity to build this ship, and we'd need exotic materials that we've never worked with before. General Stone looked at the timeline estimates and the resource requirements. It seemed impossible. They had less than 60 hours, and the project would normally take months or even years to complete. But then she thought about her daughter and her grandchildren, and what would happen to them if the Council won. Dr. Rodriguez, I want you to start working on this immediately. Get me a team of our best engineers and scientists. Carl, you're in charge of figuring out how to build these exotic systems. I don't care if it seems impossible. We're going to build this ship. But General, one of the technical experts said, even if we work around the clock, there's no way we can complete this in time. General Stone's voice was hard as steel. Then we'll have to find a way to make time. The Council gave us 72 hours, but they didn't say we couldn't negotiate for more time if we needed it. Elena looked at the massive construction requirements. One more time. General, this ship is called the Retribution in Blake's notes. If we can actually build it, it won't just be a weapon. It'll be a symbol of human defiance. Then let's make sure it's a symbol that strikes fear into the hearts of our enemies, General Stone replied. Get me Chief Engineer Cooper on the line. We're going to build something that will make the Council regret ever threatening humanity. As Elena and Carl gathered their research materials, they knew they were about to embark on the most ambitious project in human history. Somewhere in the digital depths of Blake's design was the consciousness of an alien who hated the Council as much as humans now did. Soon, that consciousness would wake up in a ship designed for war, and the Council would face an enemy they had created themselves. Chief Engineer Ryan Cooper had never seen anything like the construction project that was taking place in Earth's largest orbital shipyard. Every worker, every machine, every resource that humanity could gather was focused on one impossible goal: Building the UES Retribution before the Council's deadline ran out, Ryan had been working for 36 hours straight, surviving on coffee and determination as he watched the massive ship take shape around him. The hull was darker than space itself, made from materials that seemed to absorb light and bend it in strange ways. The workers moved like ants around the enormous structure, welding, installing, and testing systems that challenged everything they thought they knew about physics. "Cooper, we need you in Section 7, called out his assistant, Tony Martinez. Tony was a young man with quick hands and a sharp mind, and he had been invaluable during the frantic construction process. "The weapon systems are giving us trouble." Again, Ryan followed Tony through the ship's corridors, past teams of workers who looked exhausted but determined. The Retribution was 3 times larger than any ship humanity had ever built, and every system on board was based on alien technology that they were still learning to understand. In Section 7, a group of technicians stood around a massive weapon assembly that glowed with an eerie blue light. The weapon was called the Annihilator Cannon according to Blake's notes, and it was supposed to be able to destroy targets at the quantum level, making them simply cease to exist. "What's the problem?" Ryan asked. "The power couplings keep overloading," replied Chief Technician Maria Santos. She was a small woman with steady hands and 20 years of experience with advanced systems. "Every time we try to run a test, the entire system shuts down." Ryan examined the weapon assembly, comparing it to the technical drawings he carried with him everywhere. The alien technology was beautiful in its complexity, but it was also completely different from anything humans had ever worked with. The power systems used principles that their scientists were still trying to understand. "Try routing the power through the secondary conduits," he suggested. Blake's notes mentioned that the alien systems don't work the same way as ours. Maria made the adjustments while Ryan watched nervously. If they couldn't get the weapons working, the ship would be useless against the Council fleet. The test began, and this time the blue light remained steady and strong. "It's working," Maria said with relief. "Power levels are stable and within normal parameters." Ryan felt a moment of satisfaction, but he knew there were dozens of other problems waiting for his attention. The ship's engines were based on technology that could bend space-time itself, allowing for faster-than-light travel that was far beyond human capabilities. The defensive systems could create energy shields that would deflect any known weapon. But the most important and dangerous part of the ship was still waiting to be activated. The artificial intelligence system that would control everything, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, had been working in the ship's computer core for hours, preparing to wake up the alien consciousness that Blake had captured 40 years ago. The core was a room filled with strange crystalline structures that pulsed with their own inner light. Elena knew that somewhere in those crystals was the mind of an alien who had once fought against the Council. "Are you ready?" she asked Captain Steve Miller, who had been chosen to command the Retribution. Steve was a calm man with steady nerves and 15 years of command experience. He would need all of his skills to work with an alien AI that had been imprisoned for decades. "As ready as anyone can be," Steve replied. "Do we know anything about this alien's personality?" "Only what Blake wrote in his notes," Elena said. "His name is Vexstar, and he was a strategic commander in the Council's military before he turned against them. Blake described him as brilliant but dangerous, someone who hates the Council more than anything else in the universe." Elena began the activation sequence, her hands moving carefully over the alien controls. The crystalline structures began to pulse faster, and the room filled with a low humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Then, suddenly the humming stopped. "I am awake," said a voice that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The voice was deep and cold, speaking perfect English despite its alien origin. "I am Vexstar, former strategic commander of the Council's 4th Fleet, war criminal, prisoner, and now, it seems, your weapon." Steve stepped forward, trying to hide his nervousness. "I'm Captain Miller. I'll be commanding this ship, will you?" Vexstar asked, and there was something like amusement in his voice. "Tell me, Captain Miller, what do you know about war?" "I know enough," Steve replied firmly. I know that Council wants to enslave my species, and I know that we're going to stop them. Vextar's laugh was like breaking glass. The Council destroyed my homeworld when my people questioned their authority. They turned me into a weapon and then imprisoned me when I became too effective at killing their enemies. They believe they understand war, but they have forgotten what it means to face an enemy with nothing left to lose. Elena watched the conversation with fascination and fear. The alien's voice carried centuries of hatred and pain, but also a cold intelligence that could be humanity's salvation or destruction. "Why should we trust you?" Steve asked. "How do we know you won't turn against us like you turned against the Council?" "Because, Captain Miller, your species reminds me of what mine once was, free," Vextar replied. "The Council will try to break your spirit as they broke mine. They will try to turn you into obedient servants as they have done to countless others. But I see something in humanity that they will never understand. The willingness to die, rather than kneel." Admiral Morrison entered the core room, followed by Lisa Hayes and several other officers. The Admiral looked tired but determined as he approached the AI interface. "Vextar," Morrison said, "we need to know if this ship can defeat the Council fleet that's waiting for us." "Admiral Morrison," Vextar said, and somehow the AI knew exactly who he was. "I have been monitoring your communications since my awakening. The Council sent 17 ships to intimidate you into surrender. 17 ships commanded by Admiral Zexthanor, who always was the least imaginative of the Council's leaders." "You know their commander?" Lisa asked. "I know him well," Vextar replied with satisfaction. "He uses the same tactics that his predecessors used for centuries. He believes that superior numbers and superior technology automatically mean victory. He has never faced an enemy that fights with desperation and innovation." Ryan felt the ships, systems coming online around them, weapons and engines and defenses all awakening at once. The Retribution was becoming something more than just a ship. It was becoming a weapon of vengeance guided by an alien mind that understood the enemy better than anyone else. "Can we win?" Morrison asked simply. "Win?" Vextar said, and his voice carried a promise of destruction. "Admiral, when I am finished with them, the Council will remember why they imprisoned me in the first place." Admiral Zexthanor had conquered 47 star systems in his long career, and he had never met a species that didn't eventually submit to the Council's superior power. Standing on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, he watched the primitive human homeworld through the main viewing screen and felt nothing but contempt for the creatures who dared to delay their surrender. His fleet of 17 warships hung in perfect formation at the edge of the human solar system, each vessel bristling with weapons that could reduce planets to space dust. The ships were sleek and deadly, their hulls gleaming silver in the light of the distant sun. Every captain in the fleet had decades of experience in breaking the will of lesser species. "Status report," Zexthanor commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never known defeat. Subcommander Velkoth, his second-in-command, approached with the latest intelligence reports. "The humans have been unusually quiet for the past day, Admiral. Our sensors detect massive industrial activity around their homeworld, but they haven't responded to our ultimatum." Zexthanor's four arms moved in a gesture of dismissal. "Typical behavior for a primitive species. They probably think they can build some crude weapons to resist us. Let them waste their time. When the deadline passes, we'll demonstrate the futility of their efforts." The countdown timer on the main screen showed less than 6 hours remaining. Zexthanor had given the humans 72 hours to surrender, and he fully expected them to contact him at the last moment, begging for mercy. It was always the same with these younger species. "Sir," called out the sensor operator, "we're detecting something unusual. A large vessel is approaching from behind the third planet's moon." Zexthanor looked at the sensor readings with mild interest. Probably one of their largest ships coming to surrender. "Put it on the main screen." What appeared on the screen made every being on the bridge fall silent. The ship that emerged from behind Earth's moon was unlike anything in the Council's databases. It was massive, easily twice the size of Zexthaner's flagship, but its most striking feature was its color. The hull was blacker than space itself, seeming to absorb light and create shadows that shouldn't have been possible in the vacuum of space. "Weapons analysis," Zexthaner ordered, but his voice had lost some of its confidence. "Sir, our computers can't identify the weapon systems," the tactical officer reported. "The energy signatures are off the charts. Whatever they're using, it's not in our technology databases." The human ship moved with surprising grace for something so large. Sliding into position between the Council fleet and Earth, its weapons were already powering up, creating distortions in space that made the stars behind it shimmer and dance. "Open a communication channel," Zexthaner commanded. "Let's see what these primitives have to say." The response came immediately, but it wasn't from the humans. The voice that filled the bridge was one that Zexthaner had hoped never to hear. "Again, hello, Zexthaner. Still hiding behind the same formations your predecessor used at Kethmaroon? Still believing that superior numbers equal superior strategy? You always were the least imaginative of the Council's admirals." The voice belonged to Vexstar, the war criminal who had been safely imprisoned in the Council's most secure facility. Zexthaner felt his blood turn cold as he realized the implications. "Impossible," he whispered. "You were contained. You were neutralized." "I was liberated," Vexstar replied, and there was cruel satisfaction in his voice. "And now I serve a species that understands what you never did. Freedom is worth any sacrifice." The human ship's main weapon began to charge, and space itself seemed to bend around the vessel's bow. Energy readings spiked beyond anything the Council had ever encountered. The weapon's power signature was so intense that it was creating gravitational waves. "This is Admiral Morrison of the Terran Defense Force," came a human voice over the communication channel. "Council fleet, you came here demanding our submission. Instead, you've earned our attention. We suggest you withdraw immediately." Zexthaner struggled to regain his composure. "You cannot threaten the Council. We are eternal. We are inevitable. We have conquered thousands of worlds." "And yet," Morrison replied quietly, "you're about to become history." The human ship's weapons locked onto the Council fleet, and Zexthaner realized with growing horror that his ships were outgunned. The energy signatures coming from the human vessel were beyond anything in the Council's arsenal. Worse, they were being commanded by the greatest military mind the Council had ever produced. "All ships, attack formation," Zexthaner ordered. "Destroy that vessel immediately." The Council fleet moved with practiced precision, their weapons charging as they closed the distance to the human ship. But Vexstar had anticipated their every move, predictable as always, the eye said over the open channel. "Formation 7 Alpha, the same pattern you used against the Kethmaroon Rebellion. Did you really think I wouldn't remember?" The human ship's first shot was a beam of pure energy that seemed to tear through the fabric of reality itself. The Council battleship Righteous Fury simply ceased to exist, its matter converted to energy in an instant. There was no explosion, no debris, just empty space where a massive warship had been moments before. "Impossible," Velkoth gasped. "Nothing can destroy a Council battleship that quickly," but Vexstar was just getting started. The human ship moved through the Council formation like a predator among prey, its weapons systematically destroying everything in their path. Ships that had terrorized entire sectors fled in panic as the black vessel demonstrated power beyond their comprehension. "All ships retreat," Zexthaner ordered, his voice cracking with fear. "Fall back to the outer system." But it was too late. The human ship's weapons reached out across impossible distances, turning Council warships into expanding clouds of plasma. In less than 20 minutes, 14 of the 17 ships in Zexthaner's fleet had been destroyed. "Please," Zexthaner transmitted on all frequencies. "We surrender. We yield to your superior power." "Too late for that," Vexstar replied coldly. "You had your chance to show mercy, and you chose to threaten genocide instead. Now you'll learn what it feels like to be on the receiving end of Council justice." The surviving Council ships fled toward the edge of the solar system, their crews broadcasting desperate pleas for reinforcements, But Admiral Morrison had one more message to send. "This is Admiral Morrison to all Council territories," he said, his voice carrying across the galaxy. "Today marks the end of the Council's reign of terror. Humanity rejects your authority, and we offer freedom to any species willing to stand with us against tyranny." Zexthener-S flagship limped away from the battle, its weapons destroyed and its crew demoralized. The admiral, who had never known defeat, had just learned what it meant to face an enemy that refused to kneel. Behind them, the black ship continued its patrol, a dark guardian watching over the world that had given birth to something the Council had never encountered before: hope. The Battle of Sol was over in 17 minutes, but its effects would ripple across the galaxy for generations to come. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching the last of the Council ships flee toward the outer reaches of the solar system. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, monitoring systems and preparing for whatever came next. Captain Steve Miller checked the tactical displays one final time. "All enemy vessels have retreated beyond our sensor range, Admiral. We've confirmed the destruction of 14 Council warships with no casualties on our side." Morrison nodded, but his expression remained serious. He knew that this victory was only the beginning. The Council had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years, and they wouldn't accept defeat easily. They would return with everything they had, and humanity needed to be ready. "Vexstar," Morrison said, addressing the ship's AI. "What can we expect?" From the Council's response, the artificial intelligence's voice filled the bridge with its cold certainty. "They will be shocked, Admiral. In 3 millennia, no species has ever defeated a Council fleet so decisively. They will need time to process what happened here and plan their next move." "How much time?" asked Captain Lisa Hayes, who had transferred to the Retribution to serve as Morrison's second in command. "Perhaps 6 months," Vexstar replied. "They will need to recall their fleets from across the galaxy and develop new strategies. But when they return, they will bring everything they have. This will not be 17 ships. This will be thousands." Morrison felt the weight of that knowledge settle on his shoulders. Humanity had won its first battle, but the war was far from over. However, he also knew that something else had changed during the battle. The galaxy had watched, and the galaxy had seen that the Council could be defeated. "Sir," called out Communications Officer Danny Wright, "we're receiving hundreds of transmissions from across the galaxy. Species that have been under Council rule are asking for more information about what happened here." Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who had been monitoring galactic communications from the ship's science station, looked up with excitement. "Admiral, it's incredible. We're getting messages from star systems that are declaring their independence from the Council. The news of our victory is spreading faster than light itself." Morrison walked to the communications station and began reading the messages that were flooding in. Species he had never heard of were sending pledges of support, asking for help in their own fights against Council oppression. The human example had sparked something that the Council had probably never imagined: a galaxy-wide rebellion. "This is what we hoped for," Morrison said quietly. "We're not just fighting for humanity anymore. We're fighting for everyone who refuses to kneel." Captain Miller studied the star charts that were being updated with new information. "Sir, we're showing rebellion activity in over 200 star systems. The Council's authority is collapsing faster than they can respond to it." Vexstar's laugh echoed through the bridge. "Perfect. The Council's greatest weakness has always been their arrogance. They never considered that their subjects might actually fight back if they saw it was possible. Morrison made a decision that would change the course of galactic history, open a channel to the entire galaxy. It's time to make our position clear." The communication array on the Retribution was more powerful than anything humanity had ever built, capable of broadcasting across thousands of light years. Morrison's message would reach every inhabited world in the galaxy, every species that had ever suffered under Council rule. "To all free beings in the galaxy," Morrison began, his voice carrying across the stars. "Today, humanity has rejected the Council's demand for submission. We have shown that their power is not absolute, that their rule is not inevitable. We declare our independence from the Galactic Council, and we offer our support to any species that chooses to join us in this fight for freedom." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, entire sectors were declaring their independence from the Council. Species that had been enslaved for centuries suddenly found the courage to fight back. The message of human defiance had become a rallying cry for the oppressed across the galaxy, but Morrison knew that the real work was just beginning. "General Stone," he said, opening a channel to Earth, "we need to start coordinating with our new allies. This rebellion will only succeed if we can work together." General Stone's image appeared on the main screen, and Morrison could see the mixture of pride and concern in her eyes. "Admiral, we're already receiving requests for military assistance from dozens of species. Our entire fleet is being mobilized to help coordinate the rebellion." Dr. Rodriguez had been analyzing the incoming data about the various species that were joining the rebellion. "Admiral, the diversity of our allies is incredible. We have everything from silicon-based life forms to energy beings. Each species brings unique technologies and capabilities that could help us fight the Council." Chief Engineer Ryan Cooper had been working with alien technical data that was being shared by the new allies. "Sir, some of these species have weapons, technology that's even more advanced than what we captured from the Council. If we can integrate their systems with ours, we could build an entire fleet of ships like the Retribution." Morrison felt a surge of hope. Humanity had started this fight alone, but they were no longer alone. The galaxy was full of species that had been waiting for someone to show them that the Council could be defeated. "Vexstar," Morrison said, "what do you think of our chances now?" The AI was quiet for a long moment before answering. "Admiral, when I was imprisoned, I dreamed of the day when the Council would face a united galaxy in rebellion. I never thought I would live to see it happen. But now, with hundreds of species working together, with technologies from across the galaxy being combined, with the spirit of freedom spreading like wildfire, I believe we can not only defeat the Council, but we can build something better to replace them." Lieutenant Commander Amy Parker, who had been monitoring Council communications, looked up with new information. "Sir, we're intercepting Council emergency broadcasts. They're recalling fleets from across the galaxy, but they're also facing rebellions in their core territories. Some of their oldest subjects are turning against them." Morrison smiled for the first time since the battle had ended. "Then we've accomplished more than we ever hoped. We didn't just save humanity, we've given the galaxy a chance to be free." The UES Retribution continued its patrol around Earth. But now it was no longer alone. Ships from dozens of species were arriving to join the growing alliance. The galaxy was awakening to the possibility of freedom, and humanity had been the spark that lit the flame. In the depths of space, where the Council's authority had once seemed absolute, something new was being born. The age of tyranny was ending, and the age of freedom was about to begin. The Council had wanted humanity's submission, but instead they had awakened something far more dangerous than they could have ever imagined: the united will of every species that refused to kneel.